Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something kind of different.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
diving into a fictional story
Okay.
about a newcomer named Yasmin who's trying to settle into a new country.
So, like, looking at the newcomer experience.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like a window into cultural differences and how to communicate effectively and all the challenges and rewards that come with, adapting to a new environment.
I think that using fiction can help us look at these experiences that we all have, even if we haven't all moved to a new country.
Ah.
That feeling of being out of your depth.
Totally. We're going to be using excerpts from Yasmin's story starting right when she lands at Heathrow Airport.
Okay, Heathrow.
Yeah, and you can just feel like the mix of excitement and nerves in the story. It says she steps off the plane and whispers to herself, "Finally here, a new beginning."
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah?
It's so simple, but it really captures that feeling of anticipation.
Yeah, and then of course comes passport control.
Oh, yeah, passport control.
Like that's a classic newcomer experience.
It's like a microcosm of the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're being assessed and scrutinized. Like,
Yeah.
are you allowed to be here?
Right, and it can be so nerve-wracking in a new country. So Yasmin hands over her passport and says, "Here it is, I've moved here to work and study."
I like how clear and concise she is.
Yeah.
I think that's really important when you're in a situation that might feel intimidating. Being clear and concise like that projects confidence and purpose.
I never really thought about it that way. I just thought it was about being polite.
It is polite,
Yeah.
but it's also strategic.
Yeah.
You know, it takes control of the situation in a subtle way.
Oh, that's a good point. And even the immigration officer's response is interesting. It's formal, but there's a shift at the end when he says, "Welcome to the UK."
Yeah. It's like a signal that, okay, you've passed the test. You're in.
Yeah, exactly. And you can hear Yasmin's relief when she says, "Thank you so much."
Yeah. It's a small moment, but it's significant.
So next up, Yasmin needs to get to her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
She finds a taxi and says, "Yes, please. I need to go to Bridge Street Apartments."
Again, she's keeping it simple and direct.
And the driver is so friendly. He's like, "Sure, hop in."
I think it's these small interactions that can really shape a newcomer's experience.
Oh, for sure. Like imagine being Yasmin after a long flight and passport control, and then you're met with this friendly, welcoming person.
Exactly. It starts to build a sense of ease and belonging.
And then she makes a comment about the city lights looking different. You can just sense that feeling of, wow, I'm really here.
That sense of wonder and novelty of being in a new place. It's interesting that the taxi driver picks up on that and says, "You'll love it here. It's a great city."
It's like he's reinforcing that feeling of welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to her arrival at the apartment building. The manager greets her with, "Good evening. You must be Yasmin. Welcome."
Another welcoming first interaction. So important.
Seriously. I mean, having someone who is expecting you and ready to help you can make such a difference when you're in a new place.
Definitely. It's like having an anchor in the chaos.
I also love how the narrator points out that Yasmin is using polite phrases like, "Here it is," and "Thank."
Oh, yeah. It seems like a small detail,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Right.
It shows how powerful nonverbal communication can be.
Especially when there might be cultural or language barriers.
Exactly. A smile, a polite tone of voice,
hmm
it can go a long way in building rapport.
Those little courtesies are so important.
They really are.
So we've seen how Yasmin has successfully navigated her arrival. She's used clear communication, she's met friendly people, and she's starting to take in her new city.
But her journey is only just beginning.
We'll find out what happens next when we come back.
Definitely. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we're back and ready to keep going with Yasmin's story. What happens next?
Well, even though her arrival went pretty smoothly, I'm sure things aren't always going to be easy for her.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, she's in a completely new environment, and even everyday things can be challenging when you're in a new culture.
Like what?
But just think about it. Even something as simple as taking the bus or going to the grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
It could be a whole adventure when you don't know the local brands or customs.
That's so true. I hadn't thought about that.
And then there's the language barrier.
Right.
I mean, Yasmin seems to be a good communicator, but there's always the potential for misunderstandings.
Yeah.
Even a simple phrase like, "Can I have a bag?" could mean something completely different depending on where you are.
It's funny. You don't really realize how much you depend on those unspoken rules and cultural cues until you're in a situation where they're totally different.
Yeah, it's like you're suddenly aware of everything you usually do on autopilot.
Exactly. So how can someone like Yasmin adapt to those differences?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be observant.
Okay.
Pay attention to how people interact with each other. Their body language, their tone of voice, their facial expressions.
It's like you have to become a cultural detective.
Yeah. It's about being curious, asking questions, and being willing to make mistakes.
Because everyone makes mistakes, right?
Oh, totally, especially in a new environment. The key is to learn from them and keep going.
I guess that's part of embracing the unknown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stepping out of your comfort zone can be scary, but it's also incredibly rewarding. It makes you challenge your perspectives and grow as a person.
So even though Yasmin might face some challenges, it sounds like there are also opportunities for her.
Right. It's like they say smooth seas never made a skilled sailor.
I love that. So what about the emotional side of things? How might Yasmin be feeling?
Remember when she first arrived, she was excited. But now that the novelty is wearing off, she might start to feel other things, like anxiety, loneliness, maybe even a sense of disorientation.
Makes sense. It must be overwhelming to be in a place where everything is unfamiliar.
Yeah, it's like being a child again, having to learn everything from scratch.
And that can make you feel vulnerable.
Definitely. It's like you have to rely on other people and trust that things will be okay.
So how can she deal with those feelings and find a sense of belonging in her new home?
Well, one thing is to stay connected with her support network, her friends and family back home.
Yeah, keep those connections.
Even a short phone call can really help with loneliness.
It's like a lifeline to your old life.
But it's also super important to be open to new experiences and connect with people in her new community.
Right. So find that balance between old and new.
Exactly. It's like a dance. The more you practice, the better you get at it.
It sounds like there's a lot more to come in Yasmin's journey.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how she continues to adapt and grow.
Before we move on to the last part of our deep dive, I want to ask you, the listener, what stands out to you about Yasmin's story?
What resonates with your own
Now
experiences?
take a moment to think about it, and we'll be right back to wrap things up. We're back. I'm really enjoying this deep dive.
Me too. It's amazing how much there is to unpack in Yasmin's story
Right. Like, we're learning so much about the newcomer experience.
and about how culture and communication work.
Yeah, it's like there's this whole set of unspoken rules that you have to figure out.
Exactly. And it's not always easy to do.
Remember how Yasmin keeps using those simple phrases like, here it is, or thank you?
Yeah.
They seem basic, but they're actually really important.
Oh, they are. They're her way of showing that she's trying to understand and respect the culture.
It's like she's saying, I'm new here, but I'm willing to learn.
Exactly. And those small acts of kindness she's encountered are also really important.
You mean like the friendly taxi driver and the helpful apartment manager?
Yeah, those little things can make a big difference.
They're like signs that say, hey, you're welcome here.
That's about creating a sense of belonging.
Which is so important when you're in a new place.
And you know what else is interesting?
What?
How vulnerable you are when you're a newcomer.
Yeah, you have to rely on other people and trust that things will work out.
It can be scary to give up that control.
Especially if you're used to being independent.
But it's also in those moments of vulnerability that we often discover our own strength.
So it's like a challenge that can make you stronger.
Exactly. It pushes you to grow and adapt.
I love how much we've been able to learn from Yasmin's story.
Even though it's fictional, it feels so real.
It's a reminder that everyone's experience is different.
But there are also some universal truths that connect us all.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Yasmin's story.
I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. And before we go, I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
Think about what resonated with you the most about Yasmin's journey.
Maybe it was her communication style or her willingness to embrace new experiences.
Whatever it was, try to apply those insights to your own life.
Even if you're not a newcomer, you can still learn from her journey.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.